The slap echoed across the crowded school corridor, and for a moment, everyone became silent. 14-year-old Daniel stood frozen against the wall, one hand pressed against his burning cheek while several students stared at him. Standing in front of him was Marcus Reed, the son of one of the richest businessmen in the city, wearing an expensive school uniform and a cruel smile. "You really thought you could touch my watch?" Marcus shouted. Daniel looked down at the floor and shook his head. "I didn't steal it. I found it under the bench and was bringing it to you." Marcus laughed loudly. "A poor kid like you should be grateful that people even let you study here." A few students laughed nervously. Daniel swallowed his tears. His shoes were old, his uniform had been repaired several times, and everyone knew his mother worked 2 jobs just to keep him in the private school through a scholarship. Marcus grabbed Daniel by the collar. "People like you will always stay poor." Then he pushed him aside and walked away with his friends. Daniel slowly picked up his books from the floor. His eyes were wet, but he refused to cry. He looked at Marcus's back and quietly whispered, "Maybe I'm poor today, but I won't always be." Nobody heard those words except Daniel himself. That night, when Daniel returned to the tiny apartment he shared with his mother, she immediately noticed the red mark on his face. "Daniel, what happened?" she asked, rushing toward him. Daniel tried to smile. "Nothing, Mom. I fell." His mother knew he was lying, but she didn't force him to talk. She simply hugged him. Daniel looked around their small home, at the old furniture and the second-hand computer sitting on a broken wooden table. "Mom," he said quietly, "I'm going to change our lives." His mother smiled sadly. "You already make me proud." Daniel looked at the computer. "No, Mom. One day, I'm going to build something so successful that nobody will ever look down on us again." From that day forward, Daniel changed. While other teenagers spent their evenings playing games, Daniel studied business, programming, engineering, finance, and leadership. He watched free lessons online, borrowed books from the library, and taught himself how to build software. His mother often found him asleep beside the computer at 2 in the morning. Years passed. Daniel graduated at the top of his class and received a scholarship to a prestigious university. While studying there, he created a simple software program designed to help small businesses manage their finances. At first, nobody noticed. He had no investors, no wealthy family, and no connections. But Daniel believed in his idea. He worked from a tiny rented room, eating cheap noodles while improving his software every night. Then something unexpected happened. A local business owner tested his program and loved it. Soon, 10 companies were using it. Then 50. Then hundreds. Investors began calling. Daniel refused to forget where he came from. He created affordable tools for small businesses and developed technology that helped struggling entrepreneurs compete with larger corporations. Within a few years, his company became one of the fastest-growing technology firms in the country. Daniel was now 28 years old, and his name appeared in business magazines. But he remained humble. Meanwhile, Marcus Reed had followed a completely different path. His father had given him a senior position in the family company immediately after college. Marcus never had to struggle for anything. He spent money carelessly, treated employees badly, and believed his family name made him untouchable. Unfortunately, his father eventually became seriously ill and handed Marcus control of the company. Marcus expected everything to continue as before, but the company began losing money. He ignored warnings from managers and fired experienced employees because they disagreed with him. Within 2 years, the company was drowning in debt. Marcus desperately searched for investors, but nobody trusted him. One morning, his father called him into the office. "Marcus," he said weakly, "there is only one company willing to invest enough money to save us." Marcus sighed with relief. "Who?" His father handed him a folder. "A technology company called him.But Innovations." Marcus opened the folder. The name meant nothing to him at first. "Who is him.But?" he asked. His father looked at him seriously. "The young entrepreneur who built one of the most successful technology companies in the country." Marcus shrugged. "Fine. Arrange the meeting." 3 days later, Marcus walked into a luxurious conference room expecting to meet an elderly businessman surrounded by assistants. Instead, the door opened, and a young man in a perfectly tailored dark suit walked in. Marcus stood up politely. "Mr. Hart." The young man smiled. "Yes." Marcus extended his hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you." Daniel shook his hand. Then Marcus looked at him carefully. Something about his face felt familiar. Daniel sat across the table and opened the financial documents. "Your company is in serious trouble." Marcus nodded. "That's why we need your investment." Daniel looked at him calmly. "I'm willing to invest, but there will be conditions." Marcus leaned forward. "Name them." Daniel turned a page. "First, I will take controlling ownership of the company. Second, several executives will be replaced. Third, the company will adopt strict ethical standards." Marcus frowned. "Controlling ownership. That means you would become my boss." Daniel smiled slightly. "Yes." Marcus's face hardened. "Absolutely not." Daniel closed the folder. "Then this meeting is over." Marcus suddenly became nervous. "Wait. We can negotiate." Daniel looked at him for a long moment. Then he said, "There is one more thing you should know." Marcus stared at him. Daniel slowly stood up. "Do you remember a boy named Daniel from school?" Marcus's face changed instantly. His eyes widened. Daniel continued, "A poor scholarship student. Old shoes. Repaired uniform. A boy you once accused of stealing your watch." Marcus stopped breathing for a moment. Memories came rushing back. The corridor. The watch. The laughter. The slap. Marcus stared at Daniel's face, and suddenly he recognized him. "You?" he whispered. Daniel nodded. "Yes, it's me." Marcus stepped backward. "No, that's impossible." Daniel calmly replied, "You told me people like me would always stay poor." Marcus's face turned pale. "Daniel, I was a kid. I didn't know what I was doing." Daniel looked at him. "You were 14. You were old enough to know that humiliating someone because they had less money was wrong." Marcus lowered his eyes. For the first time in his life, he felt powerless. The boy he had slapped for being poor was now sitting across from him as the man capable of saving his family's company. Daniel picked up the investment agreement. I could destroy your company. I have enough influence to do it. Marcus looked frightened. Then why are you here? Daniel paused. Because I remember what it felt like to be powerless. And I promised myself that if I ever had power, I would use it differently. Marcus looked up. Daniel continued, I'm not going to punish you for something you did as a child. But I won't allow you to continue treating employees the way you treated people at school. Marcus swallowed hard. What do you want me to do? Daniel pushed a document across the table. Apologize. Marcus stared at the paper. To you. Daniel shook his head. Not only to me. To everyone you have humiliated, ignored, or treated unfairly. Marcus's pride fought against him, but his company was collapsing. Finally, he stood up. I'm sorry. Daniel shook his head. That apology is too easy. Tell me what you're sorry for. Marcus took a deep breath. I'm sorry for believing money made me better than other people. I'm sorry for humiliating you when we were children. I'm sorry for treating employees like they were beneath me. And I'm sorry that it took losing everything for me to understand what you already knew at 14. Daniel remained silent for several seconds. Then he extended his hand. Marcus looked at it in surprise before shaking it. The investment will go through, Daniel said. But from today, I'm your boss. Marcus gave a nervous laugh. I guess life has a strange sense of humor. Daniel smiled. It does. Over the following months, Daniel transformed the company. He brought back experienced employees Marcus had fired, created fair salaries, introduced employee development programs, and established a culture based on respect. Marcus initially struggled under Daniel's leadership, but slowly he changed. He began listening instead of shouting. He apologized when he made mistakes. He visited employees personally and asked how the company could improve. One afternoon, Marcus found Daniel standing alone near the company entrance. Can I ask you something? Marcus said. Daniel nodded. Why did you really help me? Daniel looked outside the glass doors at the city skyline. Because I remembered what my mother taught me. Marcus waited. Daniel smiled. She always said that becoming successful isn't about proving you're better than the people who hurt you. It's about becoming better than the person you used to be. Marcus nodded slowly. Your mother sounds like an incredible woman. Daniel smiled proudly. She is. A year later, the company was profitable again. Marcus no longer acted like a spoiled rich kid. He became one of Daniel's most loyal executives, not because he feared him, but because he respected him. One evening, the company held a large celebration for its employees. During the event, Marcus unexpectedly stepped onto the stage. He looked at the hundreds of employees in the room and took a deep breath. Years ago, he began, I thought money made me important. I thought having more than someone else gave me the right to disrespect them. I was wrong. The room became quiet. Marcus continued, I once humiliated a boy because he was poor. Today, that same boy is my boss. But the most important thing he taught me is that poverty is not a person's identity, and wealth is not a person's character. He turned toward Daniel. Daniel, I am sorry. And thank you for giving me a second chance. The room erupted in applause. Daniel stood up and walked onto the stage. He placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder and said, "We all make mistakes. What matters is whether we have the courage to change." The two men shook hands in front of everyone. Years later, Daniel returned to his old school and donated enough money to create scholarships for students from poor families. As he walked through the same corridor where he had once been slapped, he saw a group of students laughing together. He smiled. A teacher approached him and said, "Do you ever think about how far you've come?" Daniel looked at the old wall and remembered the 14-year-old boy who had stood there with tears in his eyes. "Every day," he replied. "That boy taught me something important." "What?" the teacher asked. Daniel smiled. "Never let someone else's opinion decide your future." He walked toward the school auditorium, where hundreds of students were waiting to hear him speak. When he reached the stage, he looked at the young faces in front of him and said, "Some people will judge you because of your clothes, your family, your home, or the money in your pocket. Let them. Your circumstances today do not determine your tomorrow. The person who laughs at you today may one day need your help. But when that day comes, don't become cruel like them. Become the person you promised yourself you would become." The students applauded loudly. Daniel smiled as he looked toward the back of the room, where his mother sat proudly with tears in her eyes. The boy who had once been slapped for being poor had become a powerful businessman, a respected leader, and, most importantly, a man who never allowed success to make him cruel. And Marcus learned the lesson he should have learned years earlier. Money can buy comfort, influence, and opportunities, but it can never buy character. Sometimes the person you look down on today is the very person life will place above you tomorrow. And when that day comes, your true wealth will not be measured by what you own, but by the kind of person you became when you finally had the power to choose. Subscribe to my channel.